Hey there, today we are going to install fenders on this project bike. The stock fenders that this bike came with have some funky hardware, and because I changed the wheel size, the spacing of the fenders isn't quite right. So I'm going to spend some time making some adapters, changing the hardware out, and getting the fenders set up perfectly. So I thought I'd show you how all that works.
All right, so this is the fender on the bike now, and you can see this gap is pretty bad. Ideally, we don't want to see daylight between the fender and the tire, and there's a lot of daylight with these guys the way they're set up. The struts that are on there now are riveted in place, and we're going to change that out and do some different hardware because these struts are stamped steel, galvanized. They don't look that great, especially in the front. You can see it's got the same gap, so I'm going to need to lower this down. And the strut here, because on the original wheel set, the strut's attached to the axle of the wheel, and because I've got quick release now and I've added some additional eyelets, there's just no way these are going to work, so I definitely have to change them. Alright, so here is the Fender Set. I drilled the struts off. You can see how beautiful they are here, these galvanized pieces of steel. It wasn't too difficult. I just got a drill bit and drilled through. They wanted to spin a little bit, but I managed to get them out of there. So the replacement struts that I got are from Velo Orange. You can get a pair of these for about $12. They're not too expensive. They're just aluminum, bar that's bent at the right width for the fender, and they've got a variety of sizes there. I also purchased a full pack of Fender hardware. This is a little more expensive. This is 25 bucks, but I just figured it would be better than trying to source all those pieces separately, so I went ahead and purchased that. I had to space this out a little bit and hunted around the garage, and the thing I found to do it is actually some old valve guides from my motorcycle, which I love finding old things that you can repurpose and use, and it kind of adds to the story of the bike too. So this is from a different project that's getting repurposed for the bicycle. As I was doing this, I figured it probably makes more sense to get my chain set up so I can get the rear wheel where it's going to be, make sure that the fenders are aligned. So I spent a little time installing the bottom bracket and crank set so I could then install the chain and get the wheel in the right spot. The only problem is I realized that I ordered the wrong chain as I tried to put it on there. Kind of made a mistake there, and so I was unable to get the wheel in the right position. Instead, I just opted to put the wheel in the middle of the rear dropouts and make the fenders work for that, and then I'll make adjustments as I need to once I get the right chain installed and get it in the right place. And this is the moment when I realized I had the wrong chain. So I made this extender to allow me to lower the fender down. I measured where I wanted the fender to be, drilled a couple holes in a piece of plate steel that I had, and then just bolted that to the fender attachment that was already on the fender. And then these guys use the brake post to hold the fender in place. So with a nice low profile button head bolt and a little nut, that works out pretty nicely. So I was installing the struts and started getting them adjusted and tightened up right. They look so much better than the original struts that were on there. One of the things I ran into is that these things are not really meant to be tightened down that tight, and it's kind of a bummer. This is the moment when I stripped this thing out, I think. Oh yeah, there it was. They look like they are chrome plated brass, so the threads are not super strong. with all fenders, one of the things you want to be able to do is really lock them down so they don't make noise and rattle all over the place. So I was torn. I wanted to make sure this thing was solid. I didn't feel like I put too much pressure on it, but the bolt was definitely stripped out. Fortunately, I had a backup in my Fender set, and I was able to replace this and then carefully get it up to just tight enough that it hopefully won't rattle and won't strip out. And getting the struts to the right length is really a process of just going back and forth a bunch. You get the wheel in there, check the position, try your hardware, tighten it up, check the position again. When you feel like you've got the position right, that's when I go ahead and cut the struts. I use a hacksaw to cut these, and then I just finish it off with a file and some sandpaper. So the process is you install the wheel, check the strut length, make some cuts, come back, install the wheel, install the struts, make sure everything's lined up. It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of back and forth. On top of that, I needed to cut my hardware to make sure that my bolts were the right length for the struts as well. So there's a lot of fine tuning in here. I think that's just part of the process. You got to kind of go back and forth and make sure you have everything lined up. So we're checking the final fit. Everything looks so much better than it did. The space is gone. The fender looks like it belongs on the bike now. And all of the hardware and struts just really clean it up a lot. Now we can look at how much we've improved it with some before and after comparisons. Now the fenders are on and we're ready to move on to the final assembly to get this thing ready for the road. Thanks for watching.